In this episode, we're going to talk about how innocence has power over evil. And if you are looking for a spiritual superfood or a way of life or mode of being that will have an impact on every problem area in your life, innocence is that superfood. What I want to show you in this episode is the dynamic between innocence and evil and your consciousness, and how innocence can dispel and diffuse all kinds of negative stuff, all kinds of things that get in the way. And it might seem weird to be focusing this much on what seems like a peripheral quality in innocence, but innocence is absolutely central to the whole thing. You don't got to take my word for it. Jesus Christ brings this up in this really significant way when people start arguing about power. An argument started among the disciples as to which of them would be the greatest. Jesus, knowing their thoughts, took a little child and had him stand beside him. Then he said to them, "Whoever welcomes this little child in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. For it is the one who is least among you all who is the greatest." It's actually a really curious thing to do. Hold up frailty and almost incompetence that you find in children, no offense, and say, this is the greatest. This thing is great. That's not normal. Do you think that's how the Romans thought? In the Roman Empire, power, might makes right. Absolutely not would you have a little kid be the greatest. What's the most powerful animal? If God was going to be represented as an animal, often it's a lamb. God is the lamb. Why would you ever look to these little frail, cute things for the key to the kingdom of heaven? That's what we're going to unlock right now. So innocence is the thing that you don't know that you need, but it will absolutely, it's good. It will change your life for the better. I'm actually surprised you're still watching this video, because especially a term like innocence just sounds like that's just a fluff term. You're just saying that to it sounds kind of good, but there's no practical definition of it. There's no way you can apply it. So I'm going to give you right now, this is exactly tangibly what innocence is, which is a way of being in your life that is the fastest, most complete, most direct way into the life the divine is trying to give you. We are most familiar with the concept of innocence from kids. We talk about kids have innocence, but it's hard to pin down exactly what that is. And you know it when you see it. It's this just quirky way of being. It's endearing and hilarious, but it's not predictable. It's not like if Hallmark said, "This is what innocence is," and tried to make it's quirky. There's something that catches you off guard about it. It's mysterious a little bit what it is. It's absolutely something that can be described though, and it's something that can be put into you. So if this is playing the role of innocence in our experiment today, or our demonstration, or our correspondence, these are the ingredients. This is something that can go into an adult just as easily as it can go into a kid. Fundamentally, innocence is a state of dependence. Why are kids like they are? Because they're not taking care of their own life. Their parents, their mom and dad are got that figured out so they can go around and be weird. They don't know that when a kid is just learned to walk and they say, "See ya, I'm taking off," and they would just fall over if you didn't grab them. But they're not running their own life. Innocence is a state of dependence. Grown-ups are dependent on God, but we don't realize it. Innocence is a state of understanding that the life that's coming into you right now wouldn't continue another millisecond if God didn't gift it every second. That all the ability to think that you have, the ability to process language, the ability to love things, you need God every moment for that. Understanding the reality of that puts us in this state of innocence where it's I need God for everything. Along with that dependence comes not just an acknowledgement of it, but a willingness to be led by the Lord. Swedenborg often defines innocence as a willingness to be led by the Lord. So innocence is not only, I know you're here, but what do you want to do? And the Lord is also love itself. So it's fundamentally a willingness to be led by love. So you develop some of the character of love, because love is what's calling the shots for you. Innocence is also characterized by a lack of concern, because this would be a trust in divine providence and the guidance of God over the details of your life. Who's the mastermind of your life? Well, if you believe it's God, because of the dependence and the willingness to be led, you're a little more childlike in that you're not weighed down by the cares of the world. And that's actually really important for your spiritual health. That is what allows heaven to come in, if you have that trust, keeping your fears at bay. Another feature of innocence, and these all kind of cascade one to the next, is attribution to God of good things that happen. So if you accomplish something good, congratulations. If you're in a state of innocence, internally or however you want to do it, you acknowledge that God did that. That's God doing that through me. That's a part of the innocence, because it makes you non-possessive of the good that you do. It doesn't let you feel superior to another person because of the good that you do. Which, closely following that, is the next ingredient, which is an absence of selfishness. Innocence is the opposite of selfishness. That's why it has the power it has. And finally, all those give you an openness or a receptivity to the things that God is trying to gift to you. Here's a couple of quotes about it, about the state of innocence and the importance of it. This is from Secrets of Heaven 5608. For the Lord is innocence itself, so that those who are moved by love to him have innocence dwelling within them. You can't do the God thing and not do the innocence thing. That state, that characteristic that you see expressed in children that has all the elements I just described, that is a meaningful part of what God is, and from that, what life is all about. What is more, young children allow themselves to be governed by angels who are filled with innocence. Children do not act independently the way adults govern personal behavior by the exercise of their own judgment and will. No one can see God's face except by virtue of having innocence. Why are kids like they are? It's because they, being in this state of early innocence, then attract angels who are people in the afterlife who are full of innocence. That gives them the sphere that they have. And because of that, and because of the lack of concern that brings in, you see the face of God, which is not the same as, oh, they're right in front of me. There's God's face. Like, well, I'm trying to look over here at this menu. So the face of God is the quality, the character of God. So you look out at life and you see everywhere the joy and the peace and the goodness in things, which is exactly what kids do. Another quote about innocence, this one from the book Married Love 414. I have had various conversations with angels on the subject of innocence, and they have said that innocence is the essence of all good, and that good is good to the extent that it has innocence in it. So if you were to buy I don't know how far we can take this metaphor, but if you were to buy a bunch of things that claim to be good off the shelf, you would pick this up. Okay, what percentage of innocence is in here? If it's not at least 40%, then it's not really good. Because if you go out and you do something that benefits people or that seems like it's good, but inside you don't have this acknowledgement of your dependence on God, which keeps you from feeling superior to others, if you don't have the willingness to be led, if you don't have a genuine love for goodness and a lack of concern inside of it, it's just self-advancement. It's not really good. Because good is the selfless doing of something that is useful because it's useful. That's got to have innocence in it. Moreover, because wisdom has to do with life, and thus with good, wisdom is wisdom in the measure of the character it derives from innocence. The same is true of love, charity, and faith, they said. Remember, this is Swedenborg hearing it from angels who are close to God. And for that reason, no one can enter heaven unless he possesses innocence. Good is good to the extent that it has innocence in it, because all good is from the Lord, and to be led by the Lord is innocence. It's almost like we got more terms than we need. Innocence is who God is, which is what love is. So you can't be in heaven, which is again what love is. You can't be in love without being led by love. That's what it is. That's what innocence is. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you're enjoying the program. I hope that you find the perspective that's in it refreshing, a nice break from everything else. We need your help. There's no big corporate interest in making content like the content we make. We entirely depend on donations. That we're a not-for-profit. If you don't say, I want this message in the world, I'm going to donate, it goes away. So please consider, there's a link right in the description. Any contribution you can make is a way to not only make sure you can keep seeing our stuff, but make sure the next person comes across it on the internet and it changes their life, like I've heard from so many people, and like the way that it's changed my life as well. So support us, please. It means the world to us. It's how we can do what we do. Okay, back to the show. In this episode, we're saying that innocence has power over evil. Again, that we're in danger of just having terms. Evil. What you call evil might be different than what in this situation. If you've got these factors on you, what is evil, and why would innocence ever have any power over evil? When you see the nature of how these two things are the opposite of each other, then it makes sense. So here's the ingredients for what evil is. And evil has, in real food things where it'll say, here's one ingredient is milk chocolate. And then there's a bunch of ingredients that are within that. Evil has two ingredients, but each of those ingredients have a bunch of ingredients inside of them. The two ingredients of evil are love of self and love of the world. Don't look at me like that. I don't mean love of self like self-esteem. This is the term Swedenborg uses for it, to describe an infatuation with your own self-image and placing the importance of you here, and the importance of everyone else is somewhere down. Who cares? They're bit players in my story. I think the best modern term we would have for what Swedenborg describes as the love of self is narcissism. It is this irrational, destructive veneration of oneself and the touchy, wounded, aggressive nature of running on that. Love of self and love of the world is not, I love Australia, I visited there, so now I love the world. Love of the world is materialism, is shallow, exploitative materialism. This is how Swedenborg describes what's in those two ingredients. The evils to be found in those who are in a state of self-love are in general contempt for others, envy, unfriendliness to those who do not take their part, hostility arising from this, various kinds of hatred, vengeful behavior, trickery, guile, hard-heartedness, and cruelty. All those things are what make up this fundamental belief that I matter, you don't matter. I am what it's about, and unless you do what I want or you show me some kind of reverence or favor, I hate you. Which is, come on, man. We all have that a little bit. And this is the impact of having the self-obsession run your life. Where such evils exist, there is also contempt for God and what is God's, the truths and kind of good which belong to the church. So innocence is being led by God and realizing our dependence on God. Evil is, come on, that stuff is all stupid. I don't need that because fundamentally the idea that we would be dependent on God or even that God would exist gets in the way of us being the greatest thing that exists. Any respect they pay to these, meaning the things of religion or God, is mere lip service and not from the heart. Since evils of this sort arise from this love, there are also similar falsities, because falsities arise from evils. Meaning, when you want to behave in a way that is not honorable, you find ways to justify it. Like, well, this person, because of this, doesn't matter if I do this thing to them. Moving on to the second ingredient in evil, the love of the world. It also contains a lot of stuff that is the antithesis of innocence. The love of the world, however, is wanting by any means to divert others' wealth to oneself, setting one's heart on riches and allowing worldly considerations to withdraw and seduce one from spiritual love, which is love toward the neighbor and so of heavenly origin. Those who love the world are those who desire to divert others' goods to themselves by various means, especially those who do so by guile and trickery, paying no heed to the neighbor's good. Those in the power of that love long for other people's goods, and insofar as they are not afraid of the laws or loss of reputation by seeking gain, they deprive them of their goods, or rather, plunder them. So evil is conniving, it's scheming, it's self and wealth focused, and it absolutely doesn't care at all about anyone, which is to say it doesn't care about love for the neighbor, which is what innocence is constantly calling you toward. Okay, science fair time. This is how it all works. We talked about the nature of evil. We talked about the nature of innocence. This is how those two interact in your consciousness and how innocence has power over evil. So you love of self and love of the world, you got those. Every human being that exists has those in certain ways and to some extent in your mind. And you actually start out life with some, what Swedenborg calls heredity. There's a tendencies toward negative things, but you also pick it up in your life. You know, there's situations, there's things that aren't that great you get into, and this stuff messes with who you are supposed to be. Negative qualities that sort of rob you of the joy-filled, charitable existence that you're supposed to have. You can't just extricate everything. You can't just get rid of it because it's so intertwined with how our consciousness works and everything. But there is a way that you can put it to the periphery. Trust in the Lord, the willingness to be led by the Lord, the aversion to things that are against love of others is so opposed to what the love of self and love of the world are. When we put it in the center of our being, when we begin to live by it, you have this powerful displacement. This is how Swedenborg describes what's just happened here. Here is why the displacement of evil and the implanting and uniting of goodness and truth are accomplished by innocent goodness from the Lord. All goodness must contain innocence if it is to be good, and without innocence it is not good. Innocence is not only the receiving ground in which the seeds of truth are sown, but also the very essence of anything good. The more innocence we have then, the better our goodness is, and the more the truth we know comes alive with goodness. As a consequence, and in the same measure, we ourselves come alive, and our evil is pushed aside. And the more our evil is pushed aside, the more fully goodness and truth are implanted and united in us by the Lord. When innocence becomes central to who we are, it gets everything that's negative out of the way, and can even turn us, with our egos and with our pride and everything, into very lovable beings. Swedenborg talks about how in itself that inherent narcissism and materialism that we have is ugly. It's an ugly thing. But, he says, when infused by the Lord with charitable love and innocence, it appears virtuous and lovely. Even our self-centeredness no longer is abrasive once we have innocence in there. Love for our fellow humans and innocence are what excuse self-centeredness or a person's evil and falsity. Not only do they excuse it, they almost eliminate it, as anyone can see in young children. When toddlers show love to each other and to their parents while glowing with childish innocence, what is actually evil and false in them does not seem so, and even gives pleasure. Because kids do terrible things to each other. They take each other's toys, they hit each other, but because they're so innocent, you don't sit there and say, what a terrible person. That, like, you get it. You get, like, it's okay. Even with that in it, it's actually kind of cute. So it can be with us. It takes the negative things in us and breathes this life into them. It softens them. It turns them into kind of this self-deprecation that makes it much easier to transfer love to and from any person who has it. Swedenborg makes this interesting comment about the power of innocence to protect us from evil. This is in Secrets of Heaven 3519. It's talking about parts in the Bible where it mentions a lamb and a kid and how that is about the state of innocence. The subject here is the Lord's kingdom and conditions in which people no longer fear evil or dread hell because they are with the Lord. So evil is everything negative that's ever disturbed you in your life. Innocence is the key to really being safe from that. The lamb and the kid stand for people with innocence, and because they are kept the safest of all, these animals come up first. So innocence not only diffuses and spreads out the evil in you, it keeps evil away. Living a life where you're in innocence, where you're willing to be led by God, where you don't have an over-exaggerated sense of self-importance, where you understand that you're dependent on God and love is directing your steps, that's power. That is a state that is more invulnerable to evil and falsity than any other condition a human can be in. So I hope you get a little bit of a sense of how innocence is this very distinct and really potent thing that God uses to bring you into happiness. And the pursuit of innocence, or the I guess you could call it the cycle of innocence, is a huge part of the story of your life, of what is happening in your life. This is how the basic outline of your life and every human being's life goes. So children are brought through from the outward innocence that characterizes them at first, which is called the innocence of infancy, to the inner innocence that is the innocence of wisdom. This latter innocence is the goal of their whole process of instruction. Consequently, when they arrive at the innocence of wisdom, the innocence of infancy that had served them as a matrix in the interim is united to them. So if you think about everything good that you ever experienced as a little kid, everything that's stored up in your heart from that magical beginning innocent period in life, that's still in there. And it is waiting to be reunited. So as you go through life, all the ups and downs, and all the things that are seemingly catastrophic, there is this plan to get you from the first innocence, which is involuntary. You don't choose it, it just is there, to this innocence that is chosen. As we go through our life and say, I want to connect with God in this way, I want to understand my dependence, I want love to lead me, and that grown up, freely chosen state of innocence can join with the innocence of childhood and create this amazingly fun way of existence called the innocent life, which is also really powerful. And there's power in you over the negative stuff in you, and there's power from that for the world. Like, the innocent people can change the world, absolutely. So, hey man, go out there and put a little soap in your pepper plate.